just so we can see. Get that. Yeah. Thank you. We feel very honored to be here. It's usually me behind hosting, and I kind of love sitting in this seat.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Do you know what? It was a really weird thing. I had no idea what a podcast was. And it was just before COVID hit. I think she would have been about 4 months old. And I remember being Instagram friends with Sophie, my co host. And she reached out. She said, "Hey, I'm thinking of starting a podcast and I'd love to have you on to talk about your postnatal depression if you'd like to open up about it." And we were chatting about so many things. We got to the point, or I got to the point where I was like, I've got too much to say. I think we should co host this thing together. And then, because obviously COVID happened, there was a lot of isolation with parents and mothers. It was one of those places that mothers found support, and we were able to continue working through that time and, sharing people's, I guess, experiences, sharing our own experience, and it just continued from there. Oh, yeah, I love that.
Uh, yeah,
Tell the truth.
she's the talented one in regards to the podcasting. It's not really, it doesn't come to me naturally. I've been on hers, which is this could be the first podcast outside of
Ah,
her podcast that I've been on. So thanks for the
popping his
opportunity.
cherry.
Yeah, it's not my it doesn't come naturally to me. I can talk anyone's ear off, but in front of a screen, it's a little bit harder. Yeah, I don't do podcasts at all, to be honest. I have never I've never listened to I've listened to Jade's a couple of times because she's really made
Forced him to.
yeah forced me to. But no, I do audiobooks. I do audiobooks for some reason. That was my thing. I've never really listened to any podcasts ever, other than the few of Jade's episodes that I have. I don't know why I don't have like an affliction to it or anything. I just yeah, I've always been a book reader and a writer, so I just kind of was naturally drawn to the audiobooks. But I love what she's doing. I'm extremely proud of the work she's doing, and unlike you, I don't see that I could just do it straight away. Like I got a few friends that think that they could jump onto a podcast and kill it straight away, but no, I can honestly say that no, I don't think that's me.
Do you know, like when people, I think there's a few things with podcasting. One, people always ask me, how do you make a living off it? They don't understand that, there's a lot of sponsors and, a lot of things go into it. We have a whole management team behind us. We've got, things that have been booked in place for months and months in advance. And you've got editors. There is just so many elements to make sure that it works. And I think, even with a co-host, that's got to align. It's got to work really well together. And yeah, there's a lot of boxes to tick. And I'm really, I guess, proud and impressed with anyone that is successful in this avenue, because yeah, it sounds simple, but it's not. It's so much more. Yeah. Mm, no.
And I think you got to remember that what is so impressive, I think, is you've got to front up to these podcasts when you're feeling shitty, like when you're
Mm,
not feeling good mentally. I know a number of times that you've had big guests on, Jade, and you haven't had the best day. You've had kids screaming and
mm.
like a really big mental load, and then you've got to, it is work still, and you got to put on a brave face regardless of how you're feeling. And I think that's really impressive because it's not like where you just go to a job like a where your face isn't
Yeah,
your
yeah,
face
yeah.
isn't the face of the game. You know what I mean? So I think it's like most jobs you just go and rock up and you can get through it, but
I
you
think,
you have to put your face and your whole body into it.
yeah, we haven't really spoken about that, but I think the beauty of what we do in the niche that we're in, I have the flexibility and I guess the luxury of being honest and exactly who I am. So if I am having a bad day, everyone who's listening will know about it. I'm able to open up about my mental health. I don't shy away and put like a shield up. Yes, it is an extra pressure to do, but I think that it's easier for me to just share exactly my authentic self, and that seems to, resonate with a lot of people, which is really nice. Mm, yes. Yeah, we created such a strong community for mothers with Beyond the Bump, and we noticed a lot of our episodes were sent and shared to partners. And because our generation is very hands on, and we know dads want to be the best dads they can be, there just isn't enough support out there to back them up. And it's with Beyond the Balls and with my co host, Chi. We have open discussions about the differences between a mother's and father's mental load. We ask them what it's like to suffer from postnatal depression. We give them tips with professionals on how to be a great birth partner. Essentially, it's just like tools for dads to use that have either been told or shared by professionals or like minded mums or dads, that they can relate to. Mm.
So it was in 2013. So it was a very different kind of state of affairs back then. I think, like, I know it seems only recently, but I think the world has changed so much, and I think there's definitely more resources now. Like these podcasts, for instance, like that'd be a huge resource for young dads. And I've got a lot of friends who have listened to Jayde's podcast, potentially yours, and a few other parenting ones that have really helped them. But I think I didn't have any of that, and I don't think if it was available to me, I probably would have taken it. I don't know. It wasn't about pride or anything. It was more I kind of embraced that naivety. I didn't have many friends at that age. I think I was 22 that had children or a child on the way. So I kind of had to embrace that the naivety that came with it, which was kind of cool because it meant that everything was a bit of a challenge, but it built me as a person. I realized that this was my role, and I think one of the best things to come out of the having a child that early was it. Like I said, it created who I was, who I am now. It gave me a role to play, and it fulfilled me because look, we were traveling and like we loved life. Don't get me wrong, but like this really put me on a steady path to understanding who I was as a man and later on as a parent. So it was really beneficial to have kind of not a huge understanding of what was going to happen and what was going on. So I look back at that as a bit of a virtue. Whereas I've got a lot of friends now that ask me, so like I've got friends that are just having their first child now. They're coming into their 40s or they're young as well, and they all ask me all these questions. And sometimes I think it's beneficial if I can give them a straight answer, but a lot of them are very subjective questions. You know what I mean? I don't know how they're going to feel, and I think some of those questions are best left for yourself to answer. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think that's something that people can.
I love that he's literally going against everything that our podcasts are about. Like he's like, no, I didn't need that. No, I don't think that that's valuable. I think you should just wing it. I don't think that those, conversations are probably beneficial. I'm like,
No,
fuck.
I mean, like if you talk about if you're talking about mental health that comes into it, if you're just talking about parenting, like at its at its most basic form, and not talking about the mental health side of it, I think it's good to go in with a kind of open canvas and
Oh,
see what you make of it.
absolutely.
Like because if you get too many cooks in the kitchen, you get a
What
bit of a mess.
what I love about it, and I'm not trying to sway people to listen to podcasts because I'm actually very much more of a audio book kind of gal. I do listen to a few. Sophie, who is my co-host, will go, Jay, just tell the truth. You rarely listen to podcasts. But when I was in the younger years of raising children, I would always search for information that was relating to me at that time. So, like, if I had sleep deprivation or I wanted to know what it was like for other women in pregnancy or hyperemesis. Like these are the things I wish I had a podcast for so I could listen. I want to know how other people parent. I want to know all the different things because when you're in that life cycle of parenting, it is insane. There are so many subtopics of what we go through day in, day out. And I think it's quite refreshing to get some support or get some tips or just know that you're not alone. I love you. I honestly think that the this generation is like no other one before. Women are going to work and there are dads staying at home. You know, I go to school pickup, rarely anymore, but it's usually predominantly men that are picking up their kids. And I love seeing that, but I really do see a change. The only thing that isn't coming with that change is the support for dads to, I guess, like, they're not really good at communicating their emotions and their feelings. In If you look at the other generations, they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to do that. Men would go to work and that was it. They would send their kids outside. We are so much more hands on. We want to know about feelings. We want to know what's going on. And I hope that with what we're all doing, there will be more of a shift so they can start expressing themselves more and start wanting to learn, I don't know, different ways of parenting, because we really can do whatever we want.
I think the common denominator that you're talking about in terms of researching, etc., was that you were talking about technology. Technology was the main resource is the main resource for people now, for males now. I in 2013, when I say I was winging it or whatever I said, I meant like, so I went to like the swaddle classes at the hospital that they put on with all the other dads, like, and if anyone had any information for me, like Jayde's big family, um, a lot of kids in that family that all come and, you know, give their 2 cents. And I was very open to it, you know, and I listened to everything that everyone had to say, even the kind of older generations, the boomer generations, which I think it's very different now, how we all, yeah, it's just different how we do things. But so yeah, I didn't wing it. I looked into uh, a lot of like a lot of resources in terms of going to the hospitals and doing any of the classes. I just didn't look up things as much, if you know what I mean. Like,
But was there enough? Was there really anything
probably
to look
probably
up?
not, probably not.
Not
But
as accessible?
no, yeah, just definitely not as much as there is now. But even if there was, yeah, would I have looked it up? Probably not. Anyway, I like the more hands-on kind of, you know, the nappy changing and the swaddle technique. I enjoyed going to those classes. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. I in my teens and early 20s, I didn't drink or party at all, really. I was too busy traveling and was lucky to hang with a band and go overseas with them. I wasn't in the band. They just kind of took me along. And that was like, that's all I really knew, was just traveling and looking at cool stuff and seeing gigs. And it was such a great experience that it shielded me from the partying that was happening in Byron at the time, which I'm really grateful for, because knowing my personality now, it just wouldn't have been good in any way, really. So I didn't have the FOMO in the earlier years. I just, like I said, I found my role, and that was my uh, role, and I took it on and I enjoyed it. And, you know, at that age, you have no choice, and, you know, we've all got to work and move on. And so I did that. But later on, when we were having our third child, Yumi, and we'd had a bit of a break in between, and I'd kind of started drinking and partying. I definitely tried to catch up for those teens, and because I went to uni and lived in Melbourne, and we did a lot of traveling. So we did a lot of stuff where it was just Jayde and I, or my very, very few Melbourne friends, or like other classmates, etc. So I did get the FOMO thing, but it happened later. It happened like 2019, 2020, 2021, those kind of years. And it put a big strain on Jade and my relationship because, I was, after having kids so young, I was like, felt like I was owed that selfish cliche of, I thought I was owed like my time back again. And
You mean 30, 31? Sorry. You said 2021.
I meant the year.
Oh, the year.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
the year,
Yeah.
sorry. And yeah, so that definitely came into play. And there was a couple of years there where Jade and I really struggled with the um, tit for tat, call it the tit for tat thing, where it's like, oh, I'm going to go out Friday night. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go out Saturday night, or I'm going to go camping this weekend, or I'm going to go surfing in the morning, or you're going to go to yoga. And for a few years, we really battled with that. And I'm sure there'll be a question where we can elaborate on this later on in this podcast, but which we will. But yeah, I did definitely come up with that, and we got over it after a few years, and now it's so much smoother. Everything, it's like we're just and communication's the common denominator in that, in all those things. So, but yeah, we'll elaborate on that in a moment, I think.
Yeah, it's a long time to be with one person. It
Yeah.
is. Not one break. Not one break.
I've been with Jade for longer
Wouldn't mind
than half my life now. So I know her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
how crazy is that?
So I've known you I've had a life with you longer than I had a life without you.
Oh, babe. 18 and 21.
We were talking when I was 17, but we met just after my 18th. Yeah.
I taught him how to drive a manual. He's nudging me. I did.
I knew how to drive stick. What are you talking about?
Yes. I always wanted to be a mother. I'm an only child, so I had this big urge inside me that wanted either brothers or sisters or a big family. And when we fell pregnant I was 25 and Harry was 23, it was a shock. It's not something that we planned, but I knew deep down that it was something that I have always wanted to do. And ever since that moment of looking down and seeing the two lines on that stick, I had just so much passion and I guess like a maternal instinct to want to be. I wanted everything. How do I say this? Sorry, I'll restate it. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to do whatever it took to like create that role. And like what does that even mean? What is a mother anyway? But I think I really took it on in an old school approach where we had our first child, and without even asking my partner, I was like, well, I can feed the child and I can do a lot of the things. And unless I needed your help, I wouldn't really ask for it. And it was not on him. That was just the way that I thought mothering was, until it got me into a place of burnout. And I realized parenting and mothering is actually a shared job. And I I had postnatal depression with my third child, And that was obviously extremely difficult. And it took me until my third child to really stop and let go of the control that I had over a lot of things in our life and share it with my partner. And he was always willing and always like, yeah, sure, I can do that. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll give it a go. Like, he wasn't going to listen to a podcast or read a book about it, but he was always willing to have his hands open and say, yes, I'll give it a go. And we obviously, throughout having one child to three, it's a really messy, crazy, full time of our lives. And I don't think that I ever found that I was missing out in terms of fun and whatever was going out in the party scene, because I myself actually didn't drink or do anything for 12 years as well. And I I think the only thing that I felt throughout motherhood was loneliness. When you put on a lot of these pressures on yourself, whether you think you're doing it or not, and I just found myself really prioritizing myself and my mental health and my physical health all the way down the bottom of the list. And when you get to that, you actually label yourself as, I'm a mother, but I'm nothing else, or I'm not good enough as anything else. And that's when it's quite scary, when you start looking at yourself as just being one type of person. And then I really took it upon myself to work hard at my mental health, loving who I was, finding out who I was. And it's a huge journey to go on. But here I am, and I feel like I can say that I'm on the outer, and we talk a lot about this on Beyond the Bump. But I've had my partner of 17 years by my side, and we've cried and screamed and hugged and laughed, and I really feel I'm in the best place that I could ever be and have been. So yeah. Oh, it's huge. Bloody journey. Absolutely. I mean, we will be clear right now that I made the decision that we should have a third child, and it was at that time where when Harry said to me, actually, I'd like to go back and do creative writing. He's done a lot of writing in his life, and that's where he would have wanted to focus. And I overrode him and didn't listen to his thoughts and feelings, and said, I'll look after everyone. Just don't worry. Like, I can do it. And for the third pregnancy, I had hyperemesis. So I couldn't look after everyone. So from the moment I was pregnant, he was already having to step up more than an average person would. He just had to do everything. I didn't listen to him. The resentment came in around this time because as I gave birth, it was kind of like, and Harry can speak for himself, it was kind of like a fuck you. I told you this was going to be hard. I told you I didn't really want to do this. We're drowning in kids. That new normal for us was really chaotic. And I was frightened out of my mind with how I was feeling mentally, and I didn't feel like I could speak to him or anyone close about what I was going through at the time. And yes, it definitely coincided with how we both felt about raising another child.
Yeah. I don't know how pivotal the correlation is, or like how vital like they are when they correspond to each other. I don't know if her the the depression came from my actions or not, or if it was just they both kind of were a consequence of everything that was going on at the time. But my side of the story is, or the yeah, is that well, my career at that point was going really well, and I'd won a few awards for my novel to work on my novel, and I was away for a week, and Jayde had said that she wanted a third child, and like maybe in a couple of years, and I just kind of blew it off as and then the next second it had been 3 or 4 years like straight away, and I was like, that's parenting for you though. It just speeds up father time, and I remember Jayde started really pressing for it, and I just didn't think that we were in a position financially, physically, mentally to have another child. Like our kids were 4 and 3, I think, at the time, and there'd been some not tough years, but just some stressful years. We're just getting. I called it the light at the end of the tunnel, like where the kids were kind of old enough to
Sleep through the night
and like watch some TV on their own and just kind of look after themselves a little bit. I don't mean that like literally. I just mean that you can leave them for a couple of minutes and you're not hovering over them. And then that coincided with my career starting to, bear some fruit, and like I was just that was exciting for me. And then so I asked Jayde's parents about like, oh, what do you think? You know, I don't think financially and mentally and emotionally we're probably in a position. And I was hoping for them to kind of back me on that, and maybe speak to Jayde, or just for their input. They had kids when they were 17. They had Jayde when they were 17. One kid, I should say. So like I really value their input, and they had the opposite reaction that I was actually expecting, and it was, hey, if she wants another kid, I think she deserves it. She's earned it, and they're like, oh, we'll help in every way we can. And Jayde also said, like she just alluded to, she said, I'll do everything, to kind of coax me in, which she shouldn't have to do that. There's no mother should, or no mother to be should have to coax a partner in to, it's their right, and if that's what they want, that's fair enough, and we should appreciate that. But yeah, that's what she said to me, and to the thing one of my things that I'm mostly not proud of is I weaponized that and used it against her. So when stuff was going tough after the Yumi, um, I was like, oh, well, this is why I didn't want this child. Like I knew this was going to happen. Like we're stressed. I'm not getting any work done. And, you're suffering, and, financially we're struggling and all this sort of stuff. And so, yeah, that I weaponized that and used it against her, which, yeah, definitely not proud of. And that's something that I deeply regret. And yeah, so that's that. And once again, that was during the time where I was like, okay, if I can't do my uni work and I can't do this, then, I wouldn't mind, catching up with people I kind of missed contact with because I left Byron all those years ago. And they were all in the middle of their like, fun period, like,
and we broke the
middle
seal.
20s, and
we broke the drinking seal. So
Yeah.
it's like we've not done this in our whole teenage and 20s. So hello, let's have a try.
in the most hedonistic town
Yeah.
in Australia, pretty much. So, and like, that they're both conflicting views, like parenthood and wanting to go and try and live a life that you missed out on for 10 years. Like
Very hard
they are
to do.
so polar opposite, and you're gonna get conflict from that, and that's what happened. And we're lucky enough that we could get through it, but there was a little bit of dark times there.
I
for
think
sure.
I think two things about parenting that I just want to share. I want people that aren't parents and maybe are becoming parents or early parents or want another child to understand that when people that are close to you say they will help out or they will do things, and this is nothing to do with my parents because my parents are actually really hands-on and they're wonderful grandparents, but just in general, you cannot rely on anyone but yourself. And I'm going to say sometimes your partner, but if you are both having mental issues and not, at the best version of yourself or the best versions of yourself, you cannot rely on other people. And that plays a massive part in parenting. So I just think yeah, don't have a child because you think that someone said somewhere, sometime that they will help you, because they can change their mind and then you're screwed. Mm.
I was like our relationship. It's a you know it's hard to separate it as its own entity with the child raising. You know what I mean? Being a bit like a parenthood and a relationship. They are separate entities, but it's they just get totally entangled. And our relationship on its own has never really been too bad. It's always been a byproduct of what's happening on the other side of the fence, like the parent, like the children or financial, which always brings stress and once again conflict to your relationship. Our relationship on its own hasn't really ever been too bad. It's just been affected by what's happening behind the scenes. So yeah, that was just we just had a tough few, probably a tough year when we just had like three kids is a big step from two, just like two is a big step from one. So that with our relationship, yeah, that just took a struggle. And then when you're like I said before, trying to have some time on your own, and we're all trying to find out who we are after just being parents for so long, and we just about to find out who we are in our careers, and then all of a sudden going straight back into parenthood, it just kind of threw everything out of whack. And considering that I was not against it, but I said what I thought was I thought I was saying the right thing and speaking my mind on the topic. Once you go against that, it's always going to be hard to not lean on that kind of lean on that fact and what happened. And if that makes sense, like, so there was just there was a lot of problems going on. But yeah, our relationship as a whole, just on our own, was never too bad.
I think the way that I see it is that we've always had a really solid foundation of love and respect. And these are the two things that are a huge part of our relationship and should be with a lot of relationships. But when we strip our relationship back with all the crap that is going on, there is always that to come back to. And I think if we didn't have those two things, then we probably wouldn't be where we are today. And I feel very lucky that I've found a partner that I can have that with throughout parenting and going through certain situations in life. But I think what I notice with Harry is that whatever I'm going through, even if it's hard or even if he does not agree, he will always take the time to give something a go or be on my side. Like, he will always come to the party and be a team. I don't think he has ever in his life or our no, never in the time I've known him has he ever walked away. Yes, he's been pissed off, he's been angry, he's been upset. I have watched him cry, rarely, but like, we have gone through the thick of it, but he has never walked away. And for me, to know that, I think that has always helped us get past and move on to the next stage, because we know, like, we want to be together forever and we love each other when we get through all these hard times. So, what do we need to do to get from where we are now to the next step? I have this problem. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. And it really comes down, and I know it sounds so simple, but communication, sitting there and sharing how you feel is so important. And 99.9% of the time, I'm not sharing my feelings for him to tell me if I'm right or wrong. I just want him to say that I hear you and I feel that you're burnt out or I feel that you're tired. How can I help? Like, even that is enough for me to go, okay, I feel better. Yes. Oh. Mm. Mm. I haven't gone down that we haven't gone down that path. I find that we can often almost always find a resolution in a situation, and look, whether that takes 2 weeks, 2 hours, or 2 years, we will get there. But I absolutely think it's a sensational, I, sensational idea for people that just cannot get on the same page and they want to be together, but it's just not working out for them. I don't have anyone close to me. Actually, I would love to have someone on our podcast that has had relationship counseling and the tips and tricks. And maybe, Leonie, you can be that person that can share what you guys did.
we
Um,
we've both seen our own
yeah, we sorry,
psychologists.
well said.
Oh,
We see separate therapists.
So yeah, I saw one for 4 or 5 years. I've actually stopped in the last year.
You should go back.
Yeah, well, it was busy, and anyway, and there was a time where it was getting really tough, and we both, and Jade would always say, "I want to." I want to, what do you say? I want to come to your psychology session. And I'm like, yeah, but that's my session. You're not going to, he's heard all my side, you're not going to be able to come in and just like, say your piece and get to the bottom of it all. And then she said she wanted to do like a therapy, a relationship one. And I told my therapist this, and he was like, look, uh, you're both seeing psychologists like on your own independently, and he said like that should really hold you in good stead. And once he said that, we kind of learnt to utilize it to our advantage. We'd take what we'd get from those sessions and bring them back to the relationship, instead of us seeing a relation a mediator on their own and trying to work it all out there. We worked it out back at home ourselves. And yeah, definitely, it was definitely beneficial for
they
sure.
they kind of said to us that like you guys have your own separate issues. It's not really the
Yeah.
relationship that is the
No.
issue. And I think that if we can deal with that in your separate ways, then you guys can always come together and sort that out. And that has worked really, really well for us. But I am all for therapists, absolutely, for mental health.
Oh yeah, they really pull back the veil to get you to understand. Like I've always said this, I've always said just because they show you once you realize what's going on, it doesn't make it any easier. It just at least you know how you got there and why you do what you do, and then you can work on it from there. They don't fix you and solve you, right? But they let you understand how you are, why you are, and how that uh, kind of benefits or doesn't benefit the partner. So it's such a helpful tool, and I did it for 4 to 5 years, and so beneficial, and like it just taught me so much about myself. Like just yeah, it was crazy. So I'd say to everyone to definitely give it a try. Like don't
And
some
not until
sort of
you're broken.
counseling, some sort of counseling can be group therapy, it can be relationship counseling, or it can just be going to a psychologist. So yeah, we're big. We agree.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
my best friend.
Mm.
Yes. Mm. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
I would say I have learnt more about myself as a parent during this time than any other time in my life. And I often sit there and like question, why is it that we do all the hard work on ourselves while we're parenting? But it's actually the little ones who are in fact teaching us and pushing and making us grow for the better. So I don't think I would have gotten to where I am like mentally today, or even on a business level, if it wasn't for my children. So it really is a full circle moment. And yeah, I just I sorry, I've just had a mentee b a mental blank. um yeah, as much as the hard times are so hard in that moment, I look back on those and I value them because it's just a period of growth.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it at the start. For me, was it just gave me a direction in life. Like everything else is kind of like a sideshow to it now. And for my personality, which is very spontaneous and erratic and manic and neurotic, etc., it's really
It's a lot.
it's given me, like I said, direction and fulfillment, and um, yeah. So that's been it's like it's given me a will to
Purpose.
live really and purpose. Like I if I died tomorrow, I've created something. You know what I mean? Like I've literally created another human being, and like I'm a big on. I love my history, and Jade always gets into me about like, oh, why do you watch all that morbid history stuff? And I'm like, I I watch and read history to understand the future. You look into the past to understand the future, and children are the future. And like all my fuck ups in my life, and believe me, there's been a lot. I can fix those by implementing the lessons I've learned into my children, and then they can kind of fix the future. If I parent them right and be a good role model and leader, they can kind of, you know, fix the future, or put the future on the right path. So for me, it's like a tool to not fix the world and fix the future, but it's, you know, to kind of fix all my problems. I can do the right thing by them, and hopefully they can
And you're
learn
doing your part.
learn from it. You know, so I think it's a really cool tool and cool connection there. Yeah,
Yeah. 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 Well, there's definitely no babies on the horizon, so we'll just make that clear. Harry's had a vasectomy, unless I'm going out and finding another partner, but that's not on the horizon either. We are going to take a break over the Christmas period so we can really be present with our kids and enjoy the summer holidays. But either side of Christmas, there will be plenty of episodes on Beyond the Bump and Beyond the Balls. And yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for having us on today. We would absolutely love to have you on Beyond the Bump. And it's such a beautiful community to, I guess, appreciate other people's work in the same field. So you're doing a wonderful job.
thanks for having
Bye.
us.